So let's talk about web and web development. So we can see this image on the screen, how the web works. There are basically two machines. So on the left, so if you look at this left-hand side, you can see a browser, also called a client. That's like, the technical term. So that browser or the client, the image here is a desktop computer, but it can be any device. It can be your phone, it can be your laptop, it can be your iPad or your tab, it can be your desktop computer. Any interface that allows you to be able to launch a website is a client, right? So when you go to let's just do this now. So when you go to a browser, I hope you can still see my screen. If we go to, let's say, um, unlimited code, of course, .io. So this is a web page, right? This is the landing page or the home page of this website. Now we can see different components. You can see there are buttons. I can see a video in the background of that hero section. I can see some icons around here. These are icons. I can see this is an image. It's an image. These are different images. So what happens is that once you type in https :/ unlimitedcode.io or any website at all, what happens is that the client, now the browser or this computer, is sending a request to another machine, which is the server in this case. So that's the diagram that we're having here. So the browser sends a request to a server. It's just like when you are chatting or you are texting or you are in a restaurant and you want to eat. What you do is that you send a request to a waiter, and that waiter takes your request to the room where the food is being prepared. So the room is like the server. The room is what the inner room, the kitchen rather. The kitchen is where the food is made, is prepared. There are different components in the kitchen. You have your rice and your beans and the likes. So once the food is ready, then the waiter, let's use the word waiter now, the waiter brings your food to you as a client. All right. So that is what actually happens when you make a request to a website. So we can see some resources that we have on that server machine. The server could be hosted anywhere. It could be AWS, it could be GoDaddy, it could be which other one? It could be Hugo Host, it could be Namecheap, it could be Bluehost. There are different hosting platforms with their different machines, different servers. A server is just a computer. It's a physical device. It's a computer somewhere that can store data, and the data that it stores is what we refer to as resources. So it could be files, it could be images, it could be videos. For example, in this web page that I showed to us, there's a background video playing here. The video is stored as a file somewhere, hosted somewhere. So once we issue the website domain name or the URL, it goes and fetches that data and displays it on the browser. This is kind of a general overview of how the web works. So you send a request to a server somewhere that is hosting the content of the website, and then returns that content to you and displays it on your home page as HTML. So remember, once the content comes back, it doesn't come back as a PHP file, doesn't come back as a JSP or a JavaScript file. It comes back as HTML, right? So it is that HTML that we can see on the browser. We can see the HTML on the browser as the content of that web page. That is how it works. So if we move on, we see, so what then is the difference between the web and the internet? The internet is the global connection of different networks. So we have different networks globally. People in the UK For example, they are joining this meeting today. People in Australia are here as well. As a result of that global network, that we can communicate, that we can work together, on the web. So, but the web itself is not a collection of resources. There's a resource, there is an asset, there is a file somewhere. So once you land on this home page, there's a particular file for this home page. So once you make request to this landing page, that resource is sent back to you as pure HTML, and you can view the source. Of course, there are some websites where they've minified the HTML source. There is this school of thought that says that minifying HTML source is really not the best, because how can people learn from from what you've written? How can others learn from your source code? The argument is that once it is minified, it loads faster and other. But we have fast internet nowadays. Why should we minify HTML? Not even CSS, not even JavaScript, minifying HTML. But of course, most websites you can still view the source. So if I right click on this page, if you're in a browser, go to any website, right click on that page, you're going to see view page source, right? So if I click on view page source, now it displays this text that makes no sense to us. It's like, look at this thing. This is the home page. So this is the resource, this is the file actually that the server sends back to us for us to have this beautiful website. So you can see document type, HTML, we'll see talk about that, the style sheet, file icon, the link, meta tags, the body tag. Now different tags. Now you'll be wondering, oh, how do I write all this? How can this, how can I transform all this to a beautiful web page? It's a gradual process, right? You start building on something. You start from scratch. You write your first line of code. You write your next line of code. Like this home page now has about this is just 732 lines, which is very, very small. So yeah, so that's how it works. There's a resource somewhere. It comes back as HTML and it is being displayed on this web page. Now, what helps? The HTML is for structure, while the CSS component of web development is to add style, is to give it a beautiful presentation. If we deactivate all the CSS by the way stands for cascading style sheet for our new people, for those who are just beginning programming. So it is a technology that helps us to format our web page to be beautiful. You can see the menu bar. Let's look at this menu, or the nav bar rather, on this web page. You can see the icon is located to the left. The other menus are located to the right. There is a hero section. This button is at the top right corner. This email address is at the top left corner. So it is CSS that helps you to be able to present the content of that page the way you want, right? But the HTML is what gives you the structure, of that page. So like I have here, the internet is infrastructure, and the web is actually the internet is infrastructure, the web is the resource. I'm going to correct that. So what is web design versus web development? Now we're taking time to go through all this because there must be a foundation, right? The design component of web development is just those who build the visuals. Somebody who is good at designing. You can create beautiful images or icons, or you can style things different using different platforms. People who are into UI UX, for example, they are very good at designing and designing websites. They design those. The website may not be functional. It of course they can prototype the website. You can go there, you can click on buttons and things like that, but it is still not a fully functional website. So Those are the people who are into web design, who are into UI UX. That's like the modern terminology for that. So somebody who's into UI UX can, design websites, design, and then they can pass their designs to people who are developers. So when I have full stack developers, front end developers, back end developers, and all that. So they take the designs from the UI UX person and then translate that to code, to source code. Look at what we have here. This code, this is HTML code. They translate the design to this particular code for the website to be functional. Of course, we can talk about JavaScript, CSS, all the other technologies that you can use alongside to have a fully functional web application. But as a general overview, we have a designer or a UI UX person designing. And of course, there are different careers, and as we go on, as we continue in this training, you will start um, discerning, I think that's the word, discerning and identifying that area that you feel you are good at. Some people, not everybody's going to be a developer, not everybody's going to be a UI UX person, not everybody's going to be a front end developer. Some people are just good at designing things. They can draw with the computer, they use Photoshop, or they use Figma, for example, or they use there's another platform again by Adobe for UI UX design. So they are good at that. So start identifying those areas of where, yes, Adobe XD, thank you. So start identifying those areas that you are good at. People are people are making money just doing designs, like millions of naira, because I know about naira, and thousands of dollars just doing UI UX. So please train yourself, identify those areas that you're good at, and then focus on that. So you will join a team. So when you have a web development team, you have the developers, the back end people, the front end people, the designers, the QA people, just to make sure that that platform comes to life. So yeah, that's that. Are all web designers developers? No. So it depends on the individual, right? Somebody can be a web designer and also be a developer. I usually tell people, if you are a developer, have some design sense, right? Have some design sense. Be able to design something without relying on a UI UX person or a designer. So if you have that design sense, when the UI UX person, brings the designs, you can say, oh, you can say, oh, this is good. Oh, this no, this is really good. This fits into this, because you have that design sense, right? Know about colors, know about typography, your fonts, know how to use images, know which color goes with which color, know how to blend colors. This is what will help you as a web developer. Again, not everybody knows about that. There are very, very good web developers who are not designers at all. They rely on the work of the designer or the UI UX person. They just translate that into source code. So yeah, it depends on the individual. Because the field is broad, most times a web developer may not be an expert UI UX person, because UI UX involves a lot. It involves psychology, human behavior. People study UI UX as research, as PhD research. To start talking about user-centered design. How do you develop a platform for people? These platforms that we use every day, that is so common, WhatsApp, Discord, Facebook. You start imagining the amount of effort, the amount of designs that went into building this platform. They've tested all these things. They know that this button can convert a lot of people. Let's take this button away from here. Let's put this button here. Oh, we discovered that after testing this platform, about 10,000 people clicked on this button. So let's make it visible. Oh, this button is hidden somewhere. So you need people study this field human behavior, psychology, UI, UX, user experience. That's the full terminology for UX, user experience. UI is user interface. As you are developing the interface, you also have the knowledge of the experience. That's why when you get to some websites, you can't, you find it so frustrating. You cannot submit a form, you cannot complete your transaction. As a result of that, the business is losing money. Imagine having an e-commerce platform, and everybody, whoever comes there to purchase something, at the last stage of making payment, they can't even move forward. So that is the user experience component of that design. So people need to understand, oh, okay, these users are coming to this platform. What should they do? Let's make it easy for them to be able to use our platform. This component or this page should only serve one purpose. What is the only thing that the user should do? Not that you have a page, you're having so many buttons, click this, click that one, do this. No. So the call to action should be obvious, should be something that people can easily see, and then you're able to close that customer. So yeah, so that's basically design versus development. Development is now translating the designs into code, into source code that can be deployed to a web server. Somebody asked, are front-end developers web designers? Again, a front-end developer may not be a designer, just from what I explained. Again, it depends on the individual. A front-end developer may be a designer if the person has flair for design, for UI, UX, and the likes. So let's look at the basic structure of an HTML page. So HTML is hypertext markup language. I think somebody asked if it's a programming language. So it's a markup language. A markup language is not really a programming language, right? Because it doesn't have controls. It doesn't have controls built into it. There is markdown, there is markup. If you by the time you start publishing your source code on GitHub, you see a readme.md. That any .md file is a markdown document. So there are pages, there are websites you can go to know how to format your document using markdown language. So it's a markup. It is the language that is understood by the browser, the basic structure of an HTML page, HTML5 page. So we can see the first line, number one, you can see doc type HTML. So that line tells the browser that this is an HTML5 document, right? They are called documents. So it's an HTML5 document. That's what the line stands for. Again, for those who are joining afresh, or if you're a beginner, there are structures, there are things you must follow, you must understand. Programming generally, you must follow. That's why it's called a language. When we're learning English, for example, in primary school, we're told there are syntaxes, there are, how to conjugate verbs, how to put things together to form a sentence. In programming as well, you must follow that order, you must follow that structure. You can't put this first line 1 now as line 11. You can't put line 2 as line 10. So start having the mindset of a programmer, of a developer. So you must follow the structure, how it has been designed. This is how you must follow this. This is the structure of an HTML page. So the first thing is for HTML5, you have that doc type tag or element. And then you can see the next line number 2, we have HTML lang equals en. Now this may sound confusing, and we're asking yourself, what is all this? So that second line is the root element of this HTML document. So roots, the word root here means that it is when you have a tree, right? When you have a tree, there is a root. Every tree has a root. So the root is the base. The root is the originator. The root is where all other tags, all other parts of the tree should come from. So once you now start going up the tree, you're having branches, we're having, so on a particular branch, we're having leaves, you're having things. I'm taking my time to explain all this because it is very important. So now, so the HTML element here, every element starts with an opening, from the opening tag to the closing tag. Now, this is how you identify that. Every element that has a closing tag must must have a forward slash. If you look at line, compare line 2 and line 11. Look at line 2 and line 11. Line 11 is the closing tag for the HTML root element. See? So look at line 3. Look at line 3 to 7. There is the head tag, but line 7 now has slash head. So for every tag you open, there must be a closing tag. There, of course, there are some tags that are self-closing. For example, IMG. The image tag, self-closes. You don't need to separate IMG this, your image slash IMG that. No, you don't do that. So but for every tag must have a closing tag. So for image tag is img. Once you put in your source, we'll talk about all that, and then you put slash at the end of that opening tag. So it doesn't have a separate opening and the closing tag. So basically, this is the structure of an HTML page or HTML5 page. You have the root element. When you get to some browsers, or some not browsers, some editors or IDs that can or that helps you to collapse your source code. If you place your cursor on that number 2, line number 2, it should bring something for you to collapse. So if you collapse that thing, that line, it closes everything from line 2 to line 11, telling you that is the complete tag. So similarly, if you place your cursor on line 3, directly on 3, maybe if you are using VS Code or PHP Storm or anything, it collapses that particular tag as a full element. Similarly, if you place your cursor on line 8, on the 8th number itself, it collapses that part as an element. So an HTML element is the complete tag plus the content plus a closing tag. So we have the root element as this. We have other elements, which is the head tag here. We have the body tag, and we have HTML. Like the example we gave the other time, let me go back to the source code of this page. You can see we can begin to identify those elements we talked about. Now we can see HTML, doc type HTML. We're telling the browser that this is HTML5. HTML, this is the root element of the HTML, or the root HTML element rather. We can see head, we can see title, we can see link, we can see body. So that is the basic structure of HTML. So everything you have inside the head, look at in line, let's do line 3 to 7. Everything within the head, the opening head and the closing head tag. You can see meta tag, you can see title, you can also add scripts, you can add your CSS using the link tag. So all that is not visible to you on the browser. You don't see it on the browser. For example, the title tag here, if you want the title or whatever you give to the title to as the title of that page appears on the bar of that particular page, right? If I go to that same page again, let's go back to this place. I have you can see this. If you can see my screen here at the top, look at this tab here. This tab has a name, unlimited code, then home. That is the title of this web page. It doesn't appear on the body. The body tag, anything you have in between the closing and the opening and the closing body tag is what you see on your web page. Look at this. So inside the body tag, we have so many tags that you can introduce as you develop your website. For example, in this place, look at this body tag here. There is a div tag, so many divs, all this must be inside the body tag and then closed off at this point. Closed off here. Look at line 730. So from line 7, what was the first line here? From line 31 to line 730, that is the body element. So by the time we get into JavaScript, we'll start learning how to use HTML DOM to be able to interact with HTML elements. So for example, I might want to extract a particular div inside this body out. I might want to extract a particular content out of that body tag. So you start interacting with your web page using HTML DOM elements using JavaScript. So somebody asked, is the doc type case sensitive? No, it's not. It's not case sensitive. You can put it in lowercase, you can put it in uppercase. So this doc type, line 1 here, can be in lowercase, can be in uppercase as well. So let's move on. So choosing an editor, we want to start writing code now. So there are different IDs or editors you can use. I mentioned VS Code, Sublime Text, WebStorm, and others. So by the time we set up a proper coding environment, we'll be using VS Code. But for today, like I said in the introductory classes, we'll be making use of Code Sandbox. Now, the reason why I'm choosing Code Sandbox is that it is an online IDE. Anybody, as you are seated right now, you can go to a web browser, search for Code Sandbox, and you start coding. You start coding. So that is how quick and simple some of these online editors are. There's CodePen, there's GSFido, so many platforms that I can use. So let's launch Code Sandbox. So if you have a laptop there or you have access to a computer, please go ahead and launch codesandbox.io. Codesandbox.io. So as a first timer, you need to sign up. It's very quick. Just sign up with your, in fact, let me log out of this so that you can see. Let me log out or sign out here. So as a first timer, you should have something like this. So this is what you see. It says instant development. Code Sandbox gives you 24/7 collaborative cloud development environment. So yeah, it is cloud because you can collaborate on the source code. As I'm working or as I'll be working on this environment right now, I can share a link with you and you'll be seeing as I'm typing the code. You can also correct my code. You can contribute to the code. So that's why it is a cloud-based environment. Most of the online IDs are cloud-based. It helps you to share your source code with others. You might want to prototype an idea. If you're in a team, want to prototype an idea, you can come up with this and share it with your team, and all of you can work together simultaneously on the platform, and you'll be seeing changes, refreshes as you are working. Sign in. So I'm going to sign in. You can sign in with your GitHub account. We talked about GitHub the other time. You can sign in with your Google account or a Microsoft account. If there is single sign-on for those in, if you're in a corporate or enterprise environment where there's single sign-on, you can use SSO to sign in as well. SSO means single sign-on. So I'm going to sign in with my, let me log in. So it's going to take you to, yeah, you may not see recent here, but for me, I can see recent because I've actually created some sandboxes here before. So in case you're not getting recent, you can go to this create icon here. So we're hands-on now. So we want to code, we want to write a simple, basic HTML page, the simplest HTML page you can ever create. That's what we're going to do right now. So please try to code along, try to follow along. So click on this create. So there are popular sandboxes you can create here. We can see React, TypeScript, React, this should be JavaScript. We can see JavaScript, we can see Next.js, we can see AI code completion, there is Vue, Angular, Docker, different types of projects you can work on. I'm going to click on HTML and CSS. HTML and CSS, this particular one here, or the one here, whichever one, HTML and CSS. Now automatically generates a name for you. You can change the name, you can leave it. This is just, we're just prototyping, we're just demoing and testing. So you can just leave it as it is. And then click on create at the bottom here. Create sandbox. Create sandbox. I hope we are following along. You can, if I'm too fast, please just let me know so that I can kind of go over what is here again, or what we've talked about. So we can see on the screen, we're having the left-hand side, we can see what we talked about, the basic structure of an HTML. The doc type is there, the HTML space lang equals English. Look at en. This lang equals en means that the language for this web page should be English. Now, again, I said there are systems, there are rules to everything in programming. You must follow the rule. So you can't come and type English here. English. In English, if I can type. So, of course, you may not see anything wrong on the web page if I refresh. You know, the page is still fine and beautiful, but let's incorporate SEO, you know, search engine optimization to your website. Incorporate resource bundling to your website. Then SEO will not be able to identify your website, or will not be able to attach a language to your website. So the rule is that English is EN, see, Nigeria is NG, you know, that's by countries. French, I think French is FR. You can Google that. So by default, this web page now is lang EN. EN stands for English. So by the time your site is optimized, search engines will be able to identify this website as an English only website. So we talked about the head tag. Then we can see meta tags. So these meta tags, they are descriptions or data about the page. They are called data about data. You know, for example, this website should have a particular character set of UTF-8. We are just describing the data about the content of this website. Again, everything inside the head tag from here, I had talked about collapsing the other time. You can see the way I collapsed the code from the opening head tag to the closing head tag line. Let me maximize my screen a little bit, or zoom in rather, so that you can see what I have here. So look at line 3, this line 3 to line 9. That is the head element of this HTML. You can't call it something else. You can't put header, you can't put your name there. That is the syntax, that is the rule. You must follow the rule. Let me share. By the time you start working, you start Googling and knowing about documentations. You always revisit documentations. HTML doc Mozilla. So is a popular place where you can go. Mozilla Foundation. I mentioned working group the other time. Mozilla is part of them. I think Apple and some other people. They are the one kind of regulating how World Wide Web or the content of the website should look like. So this is a platform you can come to learn and research and know more. So I was saying there are rules to everything. You must follow this rule for your code to work. By the time we get into programming proper, we'll start identifying how errors are generated or bugs are introduced into code. So in this particular page, we're having the header tag. The meta tag tells us the character set UTF-8. This meta again tells us the name is the viewport, the content. So by the time we start working on responsive websites, that's why when you get to some websites, you have to zoom into the website. You have to scroll to one side to click something on your phone. But modern websites should be mobile responsive. So it is this meta tag that allows or that makes sure that as you are landing on that page, it is scaled to 100%, and the width, it gets the device width. Look at initial scale 1.0 means it is scaled to 100%. See? And the width is the device width, then the viewport. Viewport is the size of your screen. Like my laptop now is my viewport. The browser screen of your phone is the viewport of your phone. If you're on a tab, the viewport becomes bigger. So as the viewport changes, depending on the environment, your website should respond. That's why it's called a mobile responsiveness. Your website should adjust such that maybe you are collapsing the menu for, in a mobile environment, you are collapsing this. Let me quickly demo that using, let's go back to this. Let me open unlimitedcode.io. And if I go to inspect is a developer, let me say there's a developer tool for browsers, right? So they made it easy for us to go through what has been written in the website. So if you click on inspect and I go to look at this right hand side, I'm using Firefox, by the way. If you're on Google Chrome, it also, I think, it's F12 for most of the browsers. If you click F12 or you right click and then choose inspect. If I'm too fast, let me do it again. You right click any browser at all, go to inspect option, click on it. It brings up the developer console. You can press F12. I believe F12 should work for most browsers. F12 should bring this particular view at the bottom. Now, I was talking about mobile responsiveness. If I click on this kind of mobile icon at the right hand side of this, hope you can see my mouse at the bottom right side. If I click on this, you can see how this website just responded to the viewport. Now the viewport has changed. This is now a width of 492 by a height of 844. So when you're developing websites, part of what we talked about, user experience, you must develop websites to be responsive. So if you land on Jumia.com on your phone, on your tab, you shouldn't see the Jumia.com the way you have it on a big desktop or a big laptop computer. No. The website should respond in such a way that it is, you can navigate it properly. You don't have to start scrolling here and there to look for things to do. It means that website is mobile responsive. Now compare this view. Look at this view. Let me close this. Look at this view in comparison with what we had before. Before we had all the menus at the top being displayed because that's a wider viewport. So if you have a wider viewport, Give your users everything. Let them see what you have on the website. But if you have a smaller, narrower viewport, make your website responsive. Now, we are talking about this because of that particular tag we saw here, the meta tag in our HTML document. So the viewport content equals open quotation width equals device width, comma, initial scale equals 1.0. So by the time we go on to developing projects and all that, we'll know how to now customize or build our websites in such a way that it can be mobile responsive. So look at now, the menus have been collapsed. If I click on this, see how the menus, is now being displayed. It's like it's flying out from the left hand side. But if I cancel this, let's go back to the desktop view again. This is the same website, but look at the desktop view, so big, all the menus are being displayed. This is the desktop view. Again, let's go to inspect again and click on this icon. This is the mobile view. So when you're developing websites, you can test against different viewports. So I mentioned QA people. So a QA person will test your work on iPad, on iPhone 15, on iPhone whatever, on Samsung Galaxy 20 something, on a very big desktop computer, just to make sure that everything that the end user at the end of the day will see is what they're supposed to see. You don't want your customers to come and not be able to to transact or use your platform effectively. So the bounce rate will be high. You will not be able to convert those customers. So now it is zoomed in. I can see the hero section. I can click on this to view the menu. This site is now mobile responsive, and the menus can be seen by the right. So let's go back to this page again. You can close this. All right. So we now have. So I talked about HTML. Somebody said, please, what's a nutshell on the inspect on the right click? Didn't get it very well. Oh, okay. So once you're on a browser, right click or press F12. Let me try F12 on this browser. F12 on your keyboard. So F12. Yes, so press F12 if you're on Firefox. I believe, yeah, it is F12. I just tested it. If you're on Chrome, it is also F12. Once you press F12, it brings this developer console. We don't have time to go into all the tabs. There is the inspector, there is the console where you can check your JavaScript and the likes. There's the debugger, there's network. If you want to know how your page is loading, the speed at which it is loading, if there are network errors and all that, everything is being displayed here. There's the style editor. You can come here to edit your style in real time. It will affect the page you are looking at, but of course, it will not reflect on the server. Remember, we talked about client-server architecture. Client-server architecture, you have the client, which is the browser, sending a request to the server. Then the server responds with a response or sends back a response, and it's being displayed on the front end. So any change you make on the front end using this style editor or using anything here doesn't reflect on the server. For example, if I go to inspect and I click on this, I go to transform, I change this to welcome. You can see I'm editing. Can you see the screen? I'm editing this page directly on my browser. You can do this for any website, any web page, as long as you have access to the developer tool, the F12 tool. So you can see I changed the original text that came from the server to something else, and it's reflecting. And it's a good learning tool as well. You can use this tool to test, oh, how is the CSS like? If I adjust this CSS, how will it look like? In fact, you can build functional applications just using this developer tool. That's why it's called developer tool. Not everybody has, or not everybody knows about this. People just go to a website and they browse, and but now you are here, you have access to deeper information, deeper knowledge as regards web development. So you can change some things, you can format some things, and then wow, can you save the changes made to the inspect to open just for you in another time you visit the same site? So that's what I'm saying. The changes you are making here don't reflect on the server, right? So if I reload, click on reload, refresh the page. If I refresh the page, let's see what happens. You can see it goes back to the content from the web server. The server already owns the resource. We're talking about URL, universal resource locator. There is a resource, there is a file somewhere that has this text, transform your future in tech, in the cloud, in AWS or somewhere. So if you change the text here on your browser, it only reflects on your browser locally. But if you refresh the page, it loads the original content from the server. So yeah, so if you go to view source, you can test, you try so many things. You can go to view source, no, not view source. Yeah, view source. View source is the HTML structure of the page. We had the way we had it the other time. View page source, yeah. So you can copy the view page source, create an HTML file locally on your machine, and try to run this. See what it is going to give to you. Definitely, it's not going to give you the beautiful website we are seeing here, because you are not the content, the all the resources, the CSS, the images, and everything are not on your own local machine. So assuming you have access to this background video, for example, you have access to this logo on your machine, you have access to all these images and all that, and all the other resources in the web server. If there's a way you can download that locally on your machine, then you will see exactly what I'm seeing here, right? So experiment, try, break things, learn, do so many things. Copy the source code to your local machine and then run the HTML and see what you see. Please, sir, I tried the F12 function, but I observed no changes. So now it depends on the laptop, right? Like on my laptop, there is a function button, FN. So if your laptop has, look at, most times it's at the bottom left corner of your keyboard, FN. Look for a key named FN. So you need a combination of that FN and the F12 for it to work. So take note of that. So in case you are pressing F12 and it's not working, press FN F12. Some keyboards directly you can press F12, it's going to work. Yes, FN plus F12. Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That's a good question. So take note of that. Or just simply right click on that page, right click on the page and go to inspect. So inspect is going to bring up the developer tool. All right, so let's go. Our time is fast spent already. Let's quickly continue this. So now we have the simplest HTML page you can create, right? So we have the head tag, we have the link. So it's in the link tag you add your your CSS. We're going to talk about CSS in our next class. So now let's write some code. So there are different tags in HTML. So let me refresh this. It should be empty now. So again, everything you see on a web page, the content that people interact with must come in between the body tags, the opening and the closing body tag. So if I go to the body tag now and I do, let's just type something, welcome to web development. And I refresh. For some reason, Sandbox doesn't reload. It might reload for you, but I don't, maybe it's this browser. So if it's not reloading for you, just Control S, save. Once you save, it's going to reload this page on the right. So what we are doing here is, what we have on the right side is the result, is the front end, let me use that word, is the result of your design, of your web development. What we have on the left side is the source code, is the HTML markup. So everything we have on the left-hand side here, this whole thing here is the markup, is the HTML code that generates what we can see on the right-hand side. Now, so we can see that here. So we've talked about tags, different tags. So let's see other tags that we can make use of. So we have the paragraph tag, which is very common. If you want a text to appear in a paragraph, it is the P tag. Somebody said, I have VS Code, can I use it? Yeah, feel free, use VS Code. Yeah, so we're using Code Sandbox because I want all of us to be able to just go online and launch this IDE. So if you have VS Code, please go ahead and use VS Code. We're definitely going to use VS Code later on in the course of the training. So now this is the paragraph tag. Anytime you see P, it is paragraph. That is the HTML tag for a paragraph. So if I say I am a paragraph, and I refresh, you can see it appears here, right? I am a paragraph. That is, so if I want to make, let's say, I want to break this line. I want to make this line, I want to, I want the paragraph text to come to the next line. There is a short self-closing notation you can use called the break tag. You close and then you do this. You can see it's self-closing because compare this break tag with the paragraph tag. Paragraph has an opening on the left, content, and a closing on the right. But some self-closing tags are not like that. And this break is one of them. So BR is the short for break. You can't write break in full. Again, there are rules, there are syntaxes to all this. You must follow the rule. I mentioned the Mozilla Foundation website. There's W3C School. It's a good place to learn more. There is, what else again? So many platforms. Just Google HTML for beginners. You will see so many tutorials online. So by the time you start working on projects, you learn how to go online and work on to Google and make research or do research. So I am a break paragraph. If I refresh this page, so you can see the paragraph text is now at the bottom. Now forget, let me bring this back. Let me do this. Now look at my text, my markup. Now this paragraph is actually on the next line here, line 13. So look at line 12 and line 13. Somebody might say, oh, okay, is it because that paragraph is on line 13? That's why the paragraph is here. No. So there's something called white space or white line. So HTML interprets line 12 and 13 as the same line. So even if I put it back this way, so that I have only line 12 as the content of the paragraph tag, this will still show up. If I refresh this, this will still show as a break tag being applied to that paragraph text. Now, for some reason, as I'm refreshing, Code Sandbox is saving my source code, so it's reformatting. So don't be confused by the reformatting. Line 12 and 13 is the same line, is the same paragraph element, is the same line, is a single line of code. Well, to us, we can see it as 12 and 13, but to the HTML interpreter on this browser, it sees the beginning of the p tag and the end of the p tag as a single element. So take note of that. So we've talked about paragraph tag. That's a paragraph. Then how about header tags? So let me add comment, HTML comment. So this is paragraph. So look at this line 11. Line 11 begins with an angle bracket, exclamation mark, hyphen, hyphen, or dash, dash, then some text, then hyphen, hyphen, closing the angle bracket. So anytime you see that type of text or tag, in your code, that's a comment tag. Comments are for you to sprinkle notes in your source code, because by the time you start developing your project and the source code is becoming very large, you may want to remind yourself what this section is doing or what this code is doing, or when you want to share source code with others as well, you want to document your code, documenting or commenting on your code so that they understand what you have done, because coding, sincerely, somebody may not understand what you've written. That's just it. So it may take a while for somebody to read, oh, okay, this is what it's trying to do. But if your code is well documented, then somebody can quickly know, oh, this section or this function, oh, you are sending email to somebody, oh, you are sending email to a customer. Okay, this function is to do this. So that is how you document in HTML. And if you notice, if I refresh this page, you will not see this text. This is a comment text. Let me just say this is a comment here. If I refresh, you can see it's not appearing on the browser because it is a comment. If I remove all this, and in fact, let me refresh this. See, something is broken. Something is broken. In fact, it has seen from line 11 to line 17 as a comment. So it's stripping it off. The browser is not interpreting it as browser will not even see it. But if I remove all this and I refresh again, you can see this is a comment. It's appearing. But if I do command / depending on your operating system or your browser, most times command / or control / for Windows users will automatically apply the comment or documentation. So this is the comment, and then we have other tags as well. So let's talk about header tags. Header tags. So for header tags, there are about 6 of them, I think H1 to H6. So the higher you go, the smaller the size of the header tags. Now you may say, okay, let me just quickly do this. Let me do H1. This is a big header. Now look at how big that header is. It says this is a big header. Somebody may ask, why do I need to use header for this? Why can't I just use a paragraph, adjust the text? Let me do that here. Let me do a paragraph tag and do this is a big header. Now these are the technical things you need to know and do. Let me do style. We'll talk about CSS in our next class, but let me just quickly do this. Font size, let's do 2EM. or 2 rem. Let's see what this will give us. Font size, not font. So you can see now, I wrote font instead of font size. And when I try view the result, something is off. I can't, this shouldn't give me the size that I initially intended. So I went back looking at the source code. That's how you debug your code. You learn, oh, the actual attribute should not be, or the value of the attribute should not be font. It should be font size. So again, when you check documentations, you might be thinking, oh, how will you memorize all these things? You don't memorize, nobody memorizes them. Of course, there are some basic ones you remember, just like as I remember this one. But the documentation is so huge, it's vast. So you go online, go to the documentation and check what you need. You check what you need. You don't memorize code. So font size. This is a CSS tag or attribute that changes the size or the font of what you are seeing. I'm just doing this to prove a point here. So let me refresh this. You can see it's getting bigger. Let's do 3 rem. Let's do 3 rem. So it's getting bigger. So somebody will be asking, why should I do H1 tag? Why not just do my P tag and give it, and style it the way I want it? Now, the reason is because of search engine optimization. So when the search engine is working, like Google or Bing or everything, when it is crawling your source, your code, your website, it looks for different tags, and all these tags have meanings. So if you have a web page, or let's say a blog post with a title of how to develop website as the title, and you somewhat beautify and style your P tag as the title of how to develop a web page, I tell you, web crawlers will not index. Even if it indexes that page, it may not present that page to users who are searching. So because of search engine optimization, you use the header tag. So once Google crawler crawls your web page, oh, this is a header title, this is a smaller header, a lower header, this is the body, this is a paragraph. Google can now suggest your web page to your users. So there are places you go to search for. By the time we may not do this in this training, but there is social media marketing, online marketing, and the likes. There are people who are expert in that. They know how to do SEO such that your website can rank, can come to the top when people search your website and search online or search Google for what you do. So that is the essence. So the crawler crawls a web page. It knows that H1 should be the ideal, or H rather, any header title should be the ideal title for headers, subheaders, other subheaders, and so on. So again, there are rules and there are syntaxes to this. So let's try another header again. Let me duplicate this. So if I do H3 here and I save, you can see this one. This is the one coming from the H1 tag, and then this is the one coming from the H3 tag. Oh no, we're at time already. This is 404. Now, so we're going to round off just now. We'll continue next week. There are a lot of things to cover, so please make sure your 10 to 15 hours per week still remains. Go online, Google HTML syntaxes, how to present them, how to use them. So yeah, this is the introductory class to HTML. By next week, we'll still do more of this. You can see it's like 2 hours. 2 hours is so short. So we'll still do more of this. We'll do CSS. Somebody just posted free resources on the chat. So please do make sure to click on that link as well. and then you can continue to learn. So next week, by God's grace, we're meeting again 2 to 4 p.m. CST, that's Central Standard Time for those in the US or in that particular time zone. Uh, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. West African time, those in West Africa, Nigeria, and the likes. I think in the UK it's maybe the same thing or 1 hour behind Nigeria or so. So thank you very much for joining us today. I don't want to take so much of your time. I want us to really keep to time. We're 7 minutes over right now. Next week, by God's grace, we're going to continue from here, but also we'll try to move very fast and then do CSS. Next 2 weeks, we're going to work on JavaScript and the likes, and then we'll start working on projects. So thank you very much for joining the meeting. So thank you very much, guys. Yeah, take care. Bye.